Welcome to Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd, and seated next to me we have a rather warm and comfortable Professor Aubrey. How you doing?
I'm good. I am quite warm and comfortable. It's very lovely weather here in the Pacific Northwest lately, including, a balmy, sometimes rainy, but sunshiny day.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, the Brady Bunch couldn't make it any more sunshinier. I guess it's a sunshine day. Remember that one? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I don't know. I was listening to this podcast called Too Much Information, where these two reporters do deep dives on like different pop culture stuff, and they did one on the Brady Bunch, and wow, that show was bizarre.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, but speaking of that, to kind of tie in what we're going to be talking about today, it is another reminder that the older you get, the more nostalgic you get, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you end up like it's just taking pop culture things into account alone. Growing up and seeing a movie like Ghostbusters for the first time myself, it was on VHS. I don't know if you saw it in theaters or not.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but still, when you see it at a young at the ages at the young ages that we saw it, you're like, great film, great film. But looking at it now, at my age, at 48, I realize that it is very much a classic of the 80s and one of the I wouldn't put it in the top 10. I'd probably put it in my top 25 of greatest movies ever made.
Greatest movies ever made.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, my personal list, not a scientifically proven list, and obviously I've not seen every single movie ever made myself, so that would be kind of weird if I put that flag out there like this is the absolute best, and you're wrong if you don't agree with me.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
That would be weird and bizarre, but speaking of that, though, like another way to get nostalgic is to listen to music. And a lot of times, music can end up becoming the soundtrack to our lives, whether it be directly or indirectly. Indirectly in the sense that there's a song that you listen to maybe a few years after the fact that you're like, oh, that brings me back to age 14.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff happens. So, what the professor and I thought we would do this week is talk about 5 song choices we would use if we had the soundtrack to our lives to compile.
That's right. That's exactly what we're going to do. And I'm going to start us off
Okay.
with my list.
Oh, well, all right then.
And what I'm going to say is that my list is organized chronologically, and there is a song for every decade of my, like, anytime I was over 6 years old, right?
Okay.
So that's the deal with my list.
Yes, you were so ashamed of yourself for last week's episode when we talked about Cyndi Lauper that you had to be like, fuck it. I'm going to show that son of a bitch what research really is.
Well, I did think that your mentions of research throughout the recording indicated that you wanted to convey something to me. Of course, you tried to do so in the most passive aggressive way that I've ever seen. So,
And then you kind of brought that up after the recording last time, and I told you that I was making fun of myself because my research was having a Wikipedia page up.
well, that's significantly more than I usually do for the show.
Well, there you go. I mean, if you want to feel bad on that, then go ahead, but that was not my intention.
No, and I actually didn't really spend any more time than I usually do. I just like wrote some things down, which I usually don't, because I'm always like, I'll remember that. How could I forget that? And then I forget everything that I thought that I knew.
Yeah, I mean, we have over 400 episodes to show that I've been in that spot plenty of times myself, so it happens. But you wanted to start us off. What would be the first track in the Aubrey Baldwin Life soundtrack?
Okay, this is one of my favorites of this as well, and that is There's a Light and It Never Goes Out by the Smiths, released in 1986. Have you heard the song?
It's possible if it was on there on that album that we reviewed on the show than I did, but their music just blends together to me.
Fair enough. I feel that way about hair bands, essentially. I can't pick them out one from the other. So that's fair enough. It's a song that has, like, which is a really great Smith song because of its content lyrically and then its musical style. Because, the Smiths was made up of Johnny Marr on the guitar and Morrissey singing. And there were some other people in the band, but they were the two songwriters. And Johnny Marr would write the music and give it to Morrissey, who would then put words to it. This song is about someone who is leaving home because they feel alienated and want to have a different kind of life than they're leaving behind. Seeking solace in a relationship and being so nervous about, approaching your love interest because you're afraid that you're going to be rejected. And then he says, and if we got killed by a bus, that's cool. So yeah, it's pretty dark. And that's the thing about the Smiths is that they were sort of the first real indie pop emo band. And they sort of are they were the archetype of that kind of band. And very influential on fashion, which is interesting because it's very similar to the 90s like this, what the Smiths were wearing in the 80s is what grunge was.
Yeah. Well, I've heard though that there are times like Europe will get certain like musical artists that will hit big first before it comes to America. So, like in some ways, America is a little bit behind depending on the type of entertainment we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely wouldn't shock me. I mean, and I know the grunge look as well. As I've discovered living in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of that is just by necessity.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like people were like, I think this will look good 40 years from now. People will be going to high school and, talking about the good old 90s type of deal,
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah. But this song, you said, came out in 86, which would put you at around approximately 12. Did you catch it the year it came out, or did you discover this a few years later?
I'd say within 2 years of that, I discovered it.
So that would put you in high school. What attracted you as a high school student to this song?
Like a freshman in high school. Yeah. But I really connected with the lyrics. And, I could have written this song and many of the other Smith songs.
Because fuck Morrissey. I'm better at everything.
No, I just mean, that's not what I meant.
I know.
I just meant, like, it either, I mean, it was written in England during the Thatcher era when there was a lot of austerity and social programs were being defunded and it was very right-wing and there were lots of unemployed people. And so they sort of epitomized this lack of hope in society, like what they were being given as something to fit into. And that's how I felt. Like I felt like the 90s, there was some really bad stuff happening politically, and it was easy to feel alienated from society. And I did. And so, do I know exactly how I heard this song or how I heard the Smiths the first time? No. I probably got it from one of those Columbia House 10 CDs for 10 cents thing. Yeah, probably. That's where I got a lot of music.
That's where most of my early music collection started.
Yeah
via cassette. Granted, I did it a few times under different names. Could you send that $1? And they'll send you those tapes.
That's right. Okay, anyway, So, love the song, love the band.
All right. How about I dive in my first choice?
Yeah.
All right. If we're having a movie of my life and we're having a soundtrack, it would not be complete without Start Me Up from the Rolling Stones. As I've talked about on the show, and we even reviewed the album that the song comes from, Tattoo You from 1980. Like, this is like, while it, similar to your case with the Smiths, it wasn't a case to where, like, on February 12th, 1980, Tim Jousma saw this video for the first time for this song and fell in love with it. It would be awesome if I could say that, but I can't. But the Rolling Stones were the first consequential bit of music that I just immediately loved and latched onto. And the fact that, one, I still love their music to this day, and two, because of being fans of theirs, it made me want to know more about them. And the more I knew about them, the more I knew about what inspired them. And, also some of their contemporaries, like the Beatles, like the Who, like the Kinks. This is it. Start Me Up from the Rolling Stones is the start of my musical journey.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that, it's a perfect song for you. It's certainly a perfect first song for you because you're all about the action, the excitement, revving that motorcycle, vroom, vroom.
Yeah, I mean, they, in the late 80s during the Steel Wheels tour, they opened the tour, each concert with this song. And they ultimately said at the end of the day that was a big mistake because they started on such a high note that it was hard to keep that momentum for the rest of the concert because, they're not AC/DC. They understand that, ebbs and flows in music. You need to have ballads at some point. You need to have mid-tempo songs. You need to have your Start Me Ups. But I mean that along with like a couple years later watching E.T. in theaters with my grandma who recently passed away. E.T. is not My Dinner with Andre. It's sensational and I love it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Start Me Up?
It's a great Stone song for sure.
Yeah,
Like it.
Sounds like you definitely enjoy some of their other hits more. Is that too far off?
I like more of their older stuff more, I guess I'd say.
Okay. Well, cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Now, how about you dive into your number two?
Okay, I totally will. Number two.
Number two.
Number two. Okay, it was the 90s, people. And anytime we talk about the 90s, we know we're going to talk about Nirvana, who we've talked about
Ad nauseum.
many, many, many times on the show. So I don't want to belabor that point. But just that I liked this song because it was so emblematic of the whole deal with Kurt Cobain and captured my imagination when I heard it on MTV Unplugged. And that was probably when I actually began to appreciate Nirvana more than I had before then. I always liked Nirvana, but I didn't really soulfully connect with Nirvana until this song, probably until I heard this song on MTV Unplugged.
I agree with you on that point, especially in terms of realizing just what you lost with Nirvana. Because to me, the first time I saw MTV Unplugged was the day they announced his passing.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was a kick in the gut at age 17. I mean, and at the time, I was in your shoes. I would have said, sure, Nirvana's great, but they weren't my favorite band at that particular time. My love for their music has definitely grown over the years. But yeah, I mean, I think of his cover of All Apologies on MTV Unplugged. I also the version on In Utero. When I think of that, that's like the last few years of my marriage right there in song form. How I ended up feeling the married, buried, nobody should ever really feel like that in a relationship. If you start to feel like that, question why. If something can be fixed, fix it, but maybe leave, you know.
And you're referring to the repetition of the word married in the song.
No, there's a lyric in there. Married, buried. Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's something I picked up, obviously, in later years, not when I first heard it. When I first heard it, I think you had mentioned in your notes too about this that it's like hindsight being 2020. You could he laid his soul bare, even though the lyrics weren't, done in like a story type of song like Bob Dylan did. They were more like, as you mentioned in your notes, how the Beatles would write something. Just it was poetry, but you could still understand exactly what he was talking about.
And it created a mood and a feeling as much as it conveyed lyrically, I think.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the song, you just want to give the guy a hug. It's like, man, please.
Yeah.
But any other thoughts on All Apologies?
No, I'm just a little bummed now.
Yeah. All right. Well, how about I make it worse by talking about Frank Zappa?
Okay.
I know you like some Frank Zappa, but you don't particularly care for this song here. Joe's Garage. I would need to put that on because I think of all of my creative endeavors that I've had over the years. And, it does not take a rocket scientist. If you've listened to the show on any sort of a regular basis to know that my creative endeavors have not made me a rich man. But the beauty of Joe's Garage for me, there's a point near the end of the song because it's a story song talking about a band that forms and then they get popular, sign a record contract, and then they break up. But then near the end, there's a lyric, "Guess you only get one chance in life to play a song that goes like," and then it cuts to a band. It's like that stereotypical thing you will see of like high school or grade school bands on TV sitcoms, to where they just all play like off kilter and off key and and then you have a woman in the back, turn it down, turn it down. But to me, though, that is a celebration of a creative spirit. If you are a creative soul in any way, shape, or form, you have to keep doing it. You're not, if you're in it only for the money, that's sad. That's the reason why I don't have much respect for like Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley of Kiss, because they have always been in it for the money. And like I said, I got no problem with people making money. That's not the issue. But with something creative as well, it's like, I don't see it necessarily as fully a business. Like I think you can balance both, and there are plenty of people who are able to balance both, embracing the creative spirit of just do it and do it and do it, and also it'd be cool to make some money. And if anything, every time I listen to it, I just get a smile, and it's just like Zappa got it. Just keep creating. If you end up becoming successful, make lots of money, great. Everybody wins, but you also win by creating. And that is a beautiful message.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People got to create. Creative people ought to be creating. I'm not a creative person, really. So I need creative people in the world doing things.
I would challenge you on that thinking because of your music playing ability. You also have the ability with crafts, making stuff like that. Also, your cooking ability. I mean, that takes creative work. You don't cook like I do. You put more thought into it, so you actually are creating something. Think of what you did over Christmas, with all the pastry stuff. You didn't go buy one of those like chocolate chip bricks and cut them up and put them in the oven and go, I'm done. I made these all from scratch. No, you made everything from scratch. And that is a creative endeavor. That's something to pat yourself on the back on for. You are a creative person, just not in a way of writing a movie.
Entertainment.
Yeah, like, would I see you having any sort of interest in like going to a community theater place and auditioning for a play? No.
Really, because I loved community theater when I was a kid. I was all over the community theater.
Well, then prove me wrong. Guys and dolls come to town. You just hop up on stage. Guys and dolls, we're just a bunch of happy guys and dolls.
Is that really Guys and Dolls?
No, no. This guys and it's a obscure reference from The Simpsons when Mark Hamill was a guest, but I believe Guys and Dolls is still under copyright. So at times they will have the cast singing stuff from like a Broadway, supposedly from a Broadway play, but it's something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like when they did a Streetcar Named Desire, but turned it into a musical.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, now one question to you about Zappa. I know you've mentioned you're more of a fan of his instrumental work and not necessarily of his lyrics. What do you think about Zappa overall?
Well, Zappa's a genius. I've known enough people who are smart enough and know music well enough to know that he's a genius. And they have told me this. Otherwise, I wouldn't know that. I would think it was sort of noisy. I don't like the sound of his voice, and I don't get the lyrics. And he seems like an absurdist. I've never been a super fan of absurdists, like Andy Warhol. That doesn't really turn me on. Like this sort of idea that you're going to shock people into more avant-garde thinking.
Or even in Andy Kaufman with his absurd comedy. I know you're not necessarily a fan of his stuff, but me, I die laughing every time.
Yeah, yeah. And so that explains why this is on your list and not on my list.
That's right. Well, how about you talk about what's next for you?
Okay. Number three. 8 Mile by Eminem, 2002. So I had just moved to Portland, was attending law school here in Portland. This song is the song that I used to study for the bar exam, to like get myself all like pumped up for the bar exam. And by the time I was driving to the bar exam, I had rented a car because I didn't have a car and I wanted to arrive there on time. And so I rented a car, and the car had heated seats, which was like a revelation. Like I'd never been in a car with heated seats. And I just put this song on and I just turned it up really loud and listened to it over and over and over again until I got to the testing location. And I knew every word. I probably don't anymore. I know most of the words, but really was of a moment, that song.
A great addition to his work. I think that was probably the last time that I really enjoyed his music, though.
Mm-hmm.
There are times like Green Day, for instance. I loved Green Day up until that Time of Your Life song. Then it was like, fuck you guys. At that point, like
Right.
they completely lost me. But that's okay. It's not like they're crying about it, because I think financially, at the very least, they made a lot more money after that point than they did beforehand.
Yeah.
But there is something to say about Eminem. Like he will shock you, and he will say things like that. If you really think about it, you like really, but he's still a great songwriter.
Yeah.
Like he will, at first I thought his music was like a bit of a joke, and then a friend of mine, this is in my 20s, of course, a friend of mine, brought me to his place, and he goes, you're missing one thing. So he hands me a bong, fired up, hit the bong a couple of times, and then he puts on this song from Eminem's first album called Rock Bottom, because all I was familiar with was the Hi, my name is what? That song. And then it's a whole song about just this guy who lives in a trailer with his girlfriend or wife, and they have a young kid, and he doesn't make enough money to afford diapers and everything. It's just like, I fucking get it, man. So, like I said, after the 8 Mile stuff, I mean, I know he dated Mariah Carey for a while.
Seriously?
Yeah. But I guess he did.
Mariah Carey? I just can't even imagine them having a conversation.
I'm Eminem. Yeah, but he did end up writing like a diss track about her or something like that too. So he did get annoyed.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
there you go.
But you, especially as a feminist, like, what are your thoughts on Eminem? And obviously, he made a song that inspired you to become a lawyer. So he, in one aspect, he did something really good. But
Yeah, when we are talking about something like this, where we're looking back in the past and we're feeling nostalgic about music that we knew when we were younger, that's a kind of appreciation for something that I think doesn't have to go away just because someone is problematic.
I agree. I mean, which is why I can still watch, Hulk Hogan matches on YouTube. Because I can think back to that memory of how I initially felt and how that initial memory was a beautiful thing.
So opposite is also true, right? If you don't like something, you're apt not to change your mind about that.
Yeah,
Right, even if you found out that they were a saint or something. Wouldn't make you change your opinion about the music itself.
right.
So that's what's up with that. Like I'm not gonna sit here and defend Eminem or act like he's a feminist or as really has any kind of useful thinking going on in there other than to entertain other people with rhymes.
And most importantly, though, he's not someone like a J.K. Rowling who is actively looking to hurt people. Like, he may have done some stupid stuff in his life, but you know what? So have I. I'm not going to throw stones. I don't know him personally. The chances are I probably will never know him personally. So let him do his thing, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, how about I go on to my next choice?
Sounds great.
All right. I've mentioned this song before, and I will go over why why this song would be an important moment in the soundtrack of my life. Dear Prudence, from the
Mm.
White Album from the Beatles, and in a lot of ways, this show is one thing that came about thanks to this song in a weird way. Because when I ended up becoming single again in late 2016, early 2017, like, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I would end up listening to this song on repeat over and over again because it was speaking to me, and I didn't understand why at first, but then the more I thought about it, it was like I was Prudence for a long time. The story of Dear Prudence is it's based on a real life event. When the Beatles were in India studying under the Maharishi, Mia Farrow and her sister Prudence were there as well as a bunch of other celebrities. And apparently Prudence was so fervent in terms of studying all this about transcendental meditation and what the Maharishi had to say that she like never left her living area at that particular time. So John Lennon wrote this song up to her in order to just say, get out, enjoy life a bit. And I started doing that. And one of the things I started doing was a podcast.
Mm.
And I think I would be in a much different spot if this song didn't help kind of dispel the clouds in my head to make me realize that, yeah, challenging yourself and doing different stuff is not a bad thing. It is a good thing.
Yeah.
Getting out, enjoying life, not just, you're not a worker bee till you die. You don't have to be.
Right.
Obviously you still have to make money to live and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. You get my point, though. It's like your job does not have to define you. In a relationship doesn't have to define you either. And if that relationship ends, get out, enjoy the sun, do something. Yeah. What do you think about that song? We know you love the Beatles. If you're not familiar with that song, you don't have to answer.
No. I know the song. I know the song. Yeah, I know the song. I was just like thinking about you being Prudence, and I was just sort of spinning that out in my head. So sorry. I was deep in thought when you threw it to me.
Well, anything you want to say about that? I mean, what came to mind?
Well, just that I can see that. I see that connection, and I never thought about it that way before. But it makes total sense that that would strike you in that way about yourself at that time. And it's a great song and is a happy, it seems like a pretty happy song.
It definitely is. Like, and it's, similar to Now and Then, talking about one we've talked about recently. There are a lot of minor chords in it, and traditionally minor chords are more of the melancholy, sad type of songs, but they still find a way to make you extremely happy
Mm-hmm.
in this particular song.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, how about you dive into your next choice?
Okay, I'm totally gonna do that. It is from 2013, so here we're up in the 2010s, and it is from Daft Punk, Lose Yourself to Dance. This song is one of my very favorite songs ever. I could listen to it a lot. I do listen to it a lot.
I can attest to that.
Yes, and it's just a song that I can put on no matter what's going on, and it will make me feel at least neutral. Like if I'm really stressed out or something, it'll at least make me feel neutral and like not so stressed out. And if I'm like in a fine mood, it'll make me in a really happy mood. So that is why I chose it. It's also about dancing, which is something that I'd love to do and I always want to do more of. And I do have an experience of losing myself when I'm dancing. Like it's one of the times that I'm most happy is when I can be particularly in community and moving my body in some way that's rhythmic and to some music.
Yeah, and as someone who has seen you cut a rug on multiple occasions, you were definitely an exuberant dancer. Let's put it that
Hey,
way. Yeah,
hey, thank you.
I wanted something multi-symbolic,
Hmm.
to show how important it was. But yeah, you have definitely played it around the house before. Even though I've made it no secret that I'm not necessarily a fan of dance, I do think it is a catchy tune.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, would I put it on my work playlist? Not necessarily, but there are a lot of
Well, you
songs.
could, and it would make you think of me.
Yeah, well, there
At
are plenty of
least.
songs that make me think of you when I do listen at work.
Well, good.
Yes. Shall I go on to the next one?
Yeah, next one.
All right, this is from a Pete Townsend solo album, his second one, I believe, that he did along with Ronnie Lane from the Small Faces, and it's called Misunderstood. One reason I wanted to put it on would be that if they ever had to recount the time that I annoyed Pete Townsend, this would be a perfect song to put on. What do I mean by that? In the 2010s, The Who came out with an album called Endless Wire, and it was a 2 disc set, and one of the discs had a mini rock opera that the band put together, and it was based on a short story that Pete Townsend wrote, and Pete had released that short story on his personal website and was getting I shouldn't even say personal website. It was a blog, blog space or something like that. It's owned by Microsoft. It was owned by Microsoft. Maybe they sold it or got rid of it or something. But you also have the ability to, have your own custom domain if you threw the extra money. And obviously, Pete Townsend had that extra money. So he posted it up, like different parts of it, week by week, and then people would comment on it. And then I had mentioned, sometimes people would comment about other stuff as well. And I brought up how Michael Moore said that he was mad at Pete Townsend for not allowing him to have Won't Get Fooled Again in Fahrenheit 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pete Townsend came back, started his post, Tim Jousma, and then just told about how he just directly responded. He goes, I never had any interaction with Michael Moore. It was Roger, Roger Daltrey, the lead singer. And ultimately, we decided not to go against it. And, he ended up saying, then, well, this makes me very upset hearing this. It's not because of you. And I'm paraphrasing there, but that's essentially what he said. But I, I, I think back to that and always get a good laugh because, like, how many people get a chance to interact with one of their heroes and then you piss them off?
Yeah,
That's me.
yeah. Whoa.
But
Just like if I met Dolly Parton and she didn't like me.
yeah,
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
Yeah, it would be. But the song here, Misunderstood, just wanna be misunderstood. I love this song. I would definitely recommend people give it a listen here because I think it's one of those songs that you get you are able to comprehend the older you get because it's about understanding that it's okay to not fit in with the big group. The younger you are, with the public education system we have in this country, a lot of people, up to high school, even college for some people, you're going to be interacting with far more people than you do in regular life after you get a job and stuff like that. And, once you get to that point to where you're not with, hundreds of people that you're walking by to get to the next class, you understand that you don't have to try and fit in with these people because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Your happiness is what matters.
Mm-hmm.
So be misunderstood. Be obscure and oblique, inscrutable and vague, so hard to pin down. Some of the lyrics. But
Fancy lyrics.
yes, lots of syllables.
Yeah.
But I don't believe you're totally familiar with Pete Townshend's solo work, so I'm not going to ask you to comment on the song in particular. But what about the Who?
What about the Who? You're desperate. You're so desperate for me to say something positive about the Who.
If you don't have anything positive to say, don't say anything positive. It's okay.
No, I don't really have. The Who to me is very neutral. They've got some good stuff going on, right? Like
Yeah.
Pinball Wizard, all that stuff. It's great. Tommy, wonderful. But the Pete Townsend solo work is not to my taste, I guess I'd say.
You don't like Let My Love? No, I'm kidding. Let My Love Open the Door. I'm not.
No.
Don't answer. Don't answer. Anyway, that's on my list here, and brought back a great memory of pissing off Pete Townsend. So,
Yeah.
how about you go to your last choice here?
Okay, here's my last choice. It is Special by Lizzo from 2022. A wonderful time. It was the end of the pandemic, and this album came out. I think the album is also called Special. And it was Lizzo's sort of, here's what's been going on with me during the pandemic. So, such a great album to listen to in that moment in time. And this song in particular is about how you shouldn't defeat yourself, right? You're a special person and you shouldn't douse your own flame, I guess I'd say. And that it's hard to be special, but you're special.
You're special.
You're special.
You're special.
So it's just a very uplifting song, which I think we needed. I needed in 2022. And it did the trick.
All right. Myself, if you played a Lizzo song to me, I wouldn't know it. I've not, actively listened to her work. I was somewhat impressed by her appearance on the David Letterman Netflix show. My Next Guest Is.
Mm-hmm.
We ultimately didn't finish it as of yet, but obviously can pick up where we left off. I didn't realize that she was like a protege of Prince's. Is one of his last gifts to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And also I didn't realize that she got her national TV debut on Late Show with David Letterman. So he was one of the people that helped push her to the stars.
Yeah.
Did you know that part, or have you just discovered her relatively recently? Because I know the Late Show with David Letterman has been off the air for like a decade. So
Yeah. I didn't really come to know her until this album, I think. I mean, there were maybe one or two hits of hers that I was aware of. But it wasn't really until this album that it was like, oh.
gotcha. Yeah, and later when we talk about our other topics, I'll tell you about a reaction I had.
Okay.
Similar album-wise, but
Okay.
how about I go on to my last choice?
Sounds great.
All right, the movie soundtrack of my life would, the movie itself would probably end up being a comedy, especially for scenes that would involve me interacting with women. And one song I had to put on was from Warren Zevon called "A Certain Girl," and it's a cover of an old R&B song. And the opening is "There is a certain girl I've been in love with a long, long time," and the background singers go, "What's her name?" And Warren Zevon goes, "I can't tell you." Oh, you know? And it's a whole song. Basically, it's a song about the friend zone.
Ah,
Which I don't necessarily believe in. I mean, are there women that I do think could potentially do that? Yeah, but I think the friend zone is just more guys complaining that, they can't get dates than anything else.
well, they see it as a zone because they ever assumed that they might be closer, right? Like, why did you assume you would be closer? Like, why is it a thing
Yeah.
that you're not dating, right? Like, you decided that that was going to happen.
Yes, like if a guy tells a woman, "I'm interested in you," and she says no, like the guy should be like, "Okay, cool," and then move on from there. And if at that point, if you say okay and cool, and then never talk to that person again, were you really interested in that?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
but for me though, this song, even though I compared it to the friend zone, just it's beautifully awkward. It's a guy who doesn't have the courage really to speak up, and I've been there with women plenty of times, and just it gets a good laugh from me. It's a catchy track. Jackson Brown of all people is doing background vocals in this song.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one, what's her name? Oh,
Oh, honey.
yeah. But I don't know if you're familiar with this particular song, but
Yeah.
if you are,
Yeah. I like this song.
yeah.
I like Warren Zevon a whole lot.
Yeah, he was a genius. Another friend of David Letterman.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, in fact, Letterman was such a fan that when Warren had publicly announced that he was dying of cancer and making one last album, Warren Zevon's last television appearance was an entire episode of Late Night with David Letterman, where he played music and him and Dave talked.
Oh, fun.
And David Letterman has also made some videos recently because he is active with his own YouTube channel, with old clips and everything, where he said that he had a conversation with the head of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and was told why Warren Zevon is not in.
Uh-huh.
And Dave kind of, in his own way, Dave has a way of publicly like laughing stuff off, but he's pissed.
Yeah.
And yeah, but anyway, great song, people, and for my dating life, for what it's been over the years, I think a perfect song that kind of encapsulates that. But any other thoughts on our music soundtrack for our lives?
No, I thought it was good, and some of our favorite songs ended up on it, but otherwise there were also songs that were just of a time. And that was cool. That was fun to do.
Damn right. You know what else is fun to do?
Making fun of people who drive Teslas.
Yeah, taking down Tesla. Yeah.
Yes, Tesla Takedown. So, if you haven't heard of the Tesla Takedown, it is a basically a boycott of Tesla and a demonstrations at Tesla dealerships on a regular basis, like a weekly basis, all around the country. And it's going really well. It's getting a lot of attention. Tesla's really pissed off. They're getting people arrested, etc., that are protesting. Trump has talked about it and said basically that it's illegal to boycott something. It is not illegal to boycott something. And just, more of his threatening fascist dictator kinds of talking that he does. But Tesla stock has done nothing but go down since the inauguration. And hopefully Tesla Takedown is contributing to that, just making it showing that it's going to be a volatile. He's politicized himself so much that it's not about the fundamentals anymore. It's not about the business.
And most, from my understanding, is like most of like the loans he took out for what was formerly known as Twitter was based on the success of Tesla stocks,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how rich people can, get away with the shit they do and keep on going back for more money and more money because because they have a name, because they may be a part of a company. They could be shitty with money and all that, but they could still put this up as collateral and get all the loans that they want there. So taking down this company would really be a beautiful thing in terms of seeing that piece of trash human being get everything that he deserves.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that makes me sick about him alone is the fact that he's talked about how he's getting all these threats of violence against him, and legally, we have to say this. I would not perform any act of physical violence on him. I hope no one else does. Just don't put me on a jury, right? But I don't respect him for, after he said that, he started taking his kid out with him a lot more and having his kid sit on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're using your kid as a human shield.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were seriously getting threats like that, you would not have your kid with you
Mm-hmm.
in public.
Mm-hmm.
Just again, my hope of what these next few years could potentially be is that bounds are stepped over so much that the general public, regardless of who they voted for, will be like, okay, you're going too far, and put a stop to it in one way, shape, or form. I may be naive, I may be idealistic, I may be too damn hopeful, but that is ultimately my hope here. And one thing that can lead to that would be making sure that this Elon Musk fucker gets everything he deserves.
Yeah, I really hope he goes down, whatever that, economically or whatever.
Yeah, hopefully he's rummaging for the chicken they throw away at the end of the night at KFC in a dumpster somewhere. That would be great.
Richest man in the world.
Yeah. Anyway, any other thoughts on the Tesla takedown?
No, just be part of it if you can.
That's right. Support in any way you can, folks. But what I wanted to do is kind of bring back Tim's tremendous tapes.
Whoa.
Yes, have it kind of be somewhat of a recurring segment, not something we necessarily do each week, but being that I can listen to music at work, I have the ability to put on particular albums. And what I thought would be fun would be giving my thoughts on an album where I will tell you what I think the worst song was and what I think the best song was.
Okay.
But the album in question, Joni Mitchell, Blue.
Mm.
And I know that is one of your absolute favorites.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why?
It's a concept album. And it's about a woman who's engaged in various types of relationships, but she's independently traveling around the world. And, it's just about her experiences over time. And, lots of shit happens. I'm not going to give away no spoilers here.
Yeah.
But
at the end of the day, she's blue.
but at the end of the day, she's not feeling good.
Yeah.
All the time.
I have heard this album being mentioned as one of the greatest albums ever made, multiple times, and not from you, from like, music writers and stuff over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Top 10 list, you will definitely see this album continuously end up being named as one of the best ever made. I resisted listening to her work for the longest time because she sounded a little too much like Joan Baez to me.
Mm-hmm. It's a chicklet problem.
Yes, because I only think that there are 7 women who have ever been involved in recorded music ever, right?
No, but I'm saying that she's a female performer, songwriter, incredible person. And you didn't listen to her because why again?
Because the few times that I have, like what is that song first? Big Yellow Taxi.
Yeah.
I mean, that was okay, but it was kind of goofy, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
a
no,
fun,
that's
silly song.
probably my least favorite song for it.
Yeah, but just vocally, the few times I did hear her, the affectations sounded like Joan Baez, and to me, Joan Baez sounds like someone that's singing in a Sunday school choir.
Mm.
And for some people that's great. For me, and I've been open about my musical taste here, so I'm not in any way, shape, or form throwing stones when one of my favorite bands is Motorhead. I mean, Lemmy's not was never ever going to sing opera piece, right?
No.
And I don't think Joan Baez is going to cry because I'm not a fan of her vocal delivery. She's doing okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I, after saying all that, I, to your point with the challenge that you gave me to try and to listen to some more, female musicians, I that's basically what I wanted to do. I mean, like because of the fact that it has been mentioned as one of the greatest albums ever made by many, many people over the years, I thought, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And I will start off with my least favorite track here, the last track on the album, "The Last Time I Saw Richard."
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work for me. This song did have too much of that Sunday school type singing voice that just doesn't work for me. What do you think about that track, if you remember it at all?
Oh, of course I remember it. So what happens in that song is that you get a lot of resolution of the stories that have been being told. And you find out who Richard is. And so I think when I listen to that song, I'm just so focused on, yeah, Richard, what the fuck? Kind of resolution, right?
Yeah.
Like, it turns out he's a total asshole. No spoilers. But yeah, it's just so meaningful to the story that I think I've just never even thought about it musically before.
And I think that at least for you and I, that shows how differently we look at music.
Yeah.
Because me, I'm more of a vibe, a feel, the emotion. And not saying you're not, but I think you do value more of the stories being told with the lyrics, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So speaking of that, how about I talk about my favorite track?
Yeah, tell us what your favorite track is.
All right. Initially, I was going to say California.
Mm-hmm.
California, good song. It didn't blow me away or anything like that, but I thought, yeah, this is okay. I will type this on my iPad as my favorite song. And then a couple tracks later, Jingle Bells in a minor key starts hitting, and I heard River for the first time. And like the text I sent you was after I first heard that song. And what did my text say to you? Holy shit. Like, it's just her and a piano, and essentially the song that she's playing on the piano is Jingle Bells in a minor key, with some variations, of course. It's not just that, but this is a beautiful fucking song. I mean, like it's a song about being lonely at Christmas time. And obviously, there's more to it than that in that song as well. But like, the feelings that I had in terms of like, whoa, really brought me back to the first time I heard A Day in the Life when I, listened to Sergeant Pepper. And I'm not comparing River to, A Day in the Life or anything like that as an apples and oranges comparison or anything like that. They're two different songs and being presented in two different ways. But the whole just it's been a long time since I really had a song like kick me in the face like that, like in terms of just being really fucking good. And in terms of her vocals, she is more of that folky type of singing, but this is one song to where she's also channeling the blues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And or gospel too, or something like that. And it's more of that emotion, like her, especially when she's singing about skating, and all that, just how she lets the vocals just carry. Like, one hell of a good song. What do you think about River? Where would you rank that in terms of the other songs?
It's certainly the greatest Christmas song ever written. Certainly, we could just say that.
Yeah. Well, no, the second. The first would be Christmas in Hollis from Run DMC.
Okay, I'll buy that. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. I love it. I love it as much as I almost love Real Good for Free. Have you heard this one? It's her, song that she wrote to a busking musician, sort of what she says to him. Great and beautiful song in similar ways to this one. So I encourage you to listen to it. You tell me whether you like it.
All right. I will listen to a second Joni Mitchell album. Ha ha ha. The song apparently was inspired by two people that she dated in the past. One by the name of Graham Nash and another by the name of James Taylor. In fact, she may have written this song during a Christmas outing with James Taylor. So this is what I want to do, I guess, with that segment of Tim's Tremendous Tapes. I want to be able to discover tracks like this and proclaim it to the world. River is one hell of a song. Even if you just listen to this song from her and nothing else, like you are listening to just an amazing song. Give it a listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Any other thoughts on Joni Mitchell? Now that I've listened to 8 female artists in music history.
Nice. No, I mean, I think it was a really good choice. Good job.
All right. High five.
High five. Good job choosing.
Yes. All right. Well, if you have nothing more to say to our friends at home, each Monday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long.
Blue.
You sound like a moose.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.